You did the responsible thing. You moved your money into a high-yield savings account. You're earning interest. You're being disciplined. You're doing exactly what personal finance advice tells you to do. So why does it still feel like nothing is really changing? Why does your balance move a little, but your financial life feels stuck in the same place? Why do you feel responsible, but not in control? Because saving money is not the same as fixing your system. And today we're going to audit a habit that looks smart, feels safe, and sounds correct, but often keeps people quietly stuck for years. There's a moment most people never notice. It doesn't feel like a mistake. It feels like progress. You set things up. You open a high-yield savings account. You move your money into it. Maybe you automate a transfer every month. You look at it and you relax. You don't think, I'm done. But you do think, I'm better now. And that subtle shift matters. Because once something feels better, your brain stops pushing for different. It stops questioning. It stops redesigning. And over time, that's how people stay in the same place while believing they've improved. Let's separate two things: actual progress and perceived progress. Actual progress changes your trajectory. Perceived progress changes how you feel. A high-yield savings account does both, but not equally. It slightly improves your money, but strongly improves your perception. And perception is powerful, because once you feel like something is working, you stop looking for what isn't. You stop asking, where is money leaking? What is repeating every week? What decisions am I making without thinking? Instead, your focus shifts to the visible improvement, the number going up, even if it's small, even if it doesn't move your overall situation. Now let's zoom in on the feedback loop, because this is what makes the habit sticky. Every month, something happens. You log into your account, you see interest added. It might be $20, $40, $75, not life-changing, but visible. And visibility is enough, because your brain doesn't need a big reward. It just needs confirmation. Confirmation that what you're doing is correct. So you get a loop. You save, you see interest, you feel validated, you continue. And over time, that loop becomes your definition of progress, even if nothing else in your system improves. Now, let's look at the part that doesn't show up in your account, because this is where most of the story actually lives. The small decisions, the repeated behaviors, the things you don't track because they feel normal. A coffee here, a convenience purchase there, subscriptions that don't feel expensive individually, slight upgrades in lifestyle that happen gradually. None of these feel like mistakes. They feel like life. But when they repeat consistently, they become structure. And structure is what actually determines your financial outcome. Not isolated decisions, but repeated patterns. Let's connect this with simple math. Not to be precise, but to make the pattern visible. Imagine you have $20,000 in a high-yield savings account at around 4.5%. That's roughly $900 per year, about $75 per month. Now compare that to something less obvious, a $15 daily convenience cost. That could be delivery fees, small impulse buys, add-ons that feel insignificant. $15 a day becomes over $5,000 per year. Now look at those numbers again. $900 gained, $5,000 lost. But which one do you see? The $900. Which one do you feel? The $900. Which one actually controls your outcome? The $5,000. This is the gap between perception and reality. Another key idea is sequence. Where things happen matters. Saving is not the first step in your system. It's one of the last. Money flows like this: income, spending, saving. So if your spending layer is inefficient, your saving layer will always be limited by it. You can optimize the storage, but if the flow before it is leaking, you're just storing a smaller remainder more efficiently. That doesn't create real change. It creates cleaner stagnation. This leads to something that looks good, but functions poorly. Your savings account looks organized, stable, growing slowly. It gives you confidence, but your overall system is still reactive. Spending decisions are made in the moment. Costs accumulate without intention. Nothing is clearly designed. So you end up with a clean account built on top of an unstructured system. And because the account looks good, you never question the system underneath. Now let's talk about safety. A high-yield savings account feels safe. Your money is stable, predictable, protected, and that's valuable. But safety has a side effect. It reduces urgency. When things feel stable, you don't feel pressure to change. And pressure is what forces systems to evolve. Without pressure, decisions get delayed. Habits stay the same. Inefficiencies remain untouched. You don't fix what doesn't feel broken, even if it isn't improving. This is where the real cost shows up, not in losses, but in time. Because while your system feels good enough, you postpone better decisions. You delay investing consistently, restructuring fixed expenses, building a more intentional system, and delay compounds. The longer you wait, the more your current system defines your outcome. Not because it's optimal, but because it's unchallenged. At some point, many people try to improve things. They optimize their savings account. They compare rates. They switch platforms. They chase slightly better returns. And again, this isn't wrong, but it's often misplaced because you're putting effort into a low-impact variable. While ignoring high-impact behaviors, you're improving, plus 0.5% yield, while ignoring $300, $500 monthly inefficiencies. High attention, low leverage. And over time, that's what keeps people stuck. A high-yield savings account is a tool. It solves one problem: where do I keep my cash? But when that tool starts to feel like a full solution, it becomes a substitute. It replaces the need to design a system, understand your behavior, build long-term structure. And once something becomes a substitute, you stop building what actually matters. So what does create real progress? Not effort, not motivation. Structure. A system that reduces decision-making and works even when you're not thinking about it. You can think of it in 3 simple layers. Assign. Your money has a role before it arrives, not after. So you're not deciding every time, you're following a structure. Protect. You reduce leakage, not by trying harder, but by designing friction. Make bad spending less convenient. Make good decisions automatic. Grow. You move money beyond cash, gradually, consistently, without relying on motivation, because growth is not a decision. It's a repeated process. So the problem is not your savings account. It's the meaning you attach to it. If you use it as storage, it works perfectly. If you use it as proof of progress, it misleads you, because progress is not about where money sits. It's about what your system produces over time. So if you're using a high-yield savings account right now, that's fine. You don't need to remove it. You don't need to panic, but you do need to ask a better question. Not, is my money earning interest? But, what is my system actually doing? Because interest can exist without progress, and stability can exist without improvement. A high-yield savings account is useful, but it is not a strategy. It is not a system, and it is not a signal that everything is working. So don't confuse storage with progress. Don't confuse safety with growth. And don't confuse a good habit with a complete one. Take the last 30 days. Ignore your balance. Look at your behavior. Where did your money actually go? What repeated? What leaked? Because the answer to that question matters more than your interest rate. Do you feel like your money is growing or just sitting?